Forrester, we predicted that by the end of 2025, 40% of companies, B2B companies, will actually have AI co-workers working alongside their human teams. That's 40%, Subrata. It's a huge number workforce. To be able to create something which will deliver impact at scale. I think that's important, and that's what is happening right now. Totally with you.
After several decades, India has done significantly well in the services sector. Today, we are well-known IT services space and many other services sector. Now, things that probably worked in progress is about how India become a product nation. How do we build new products? Products are not only can be built by Silicon Valley and others, but India can also build. Do you think with the new innovation, technology, infrastructure, manufacturing focus could leapfrog in terms of becoming product nation? Welcome to the Spark and the Forge podcast, where we ignite ideas and forge paths to innovation. I'm your host, Subrata Kar, and we are diving into true transformative phenomena that are not just shaping the future, they are actively rewriting our present. Generative AI and Agentic AI. Imagine a world where technology collaborates with us, creating solutions and opportunities we once thought impossible. Did you know that generative AI is projected to become a $90 billion industry by 2029? This isn't just a distant dream, it's happening now. With generative AI reshaping industries, Agentic AI is enhancing autonomy in the systems, allowing them to operate independently. These aren't just fleeting trends, they represent seismic shift in how business tackle challenges today. Now that we are in 2025, generative AI has firmly established itself as a catalyst for change. But Agentic AI is equally pivotal. It enables systems to make decisions and take actions autonomously based on their environment. According to Gartner, by 2028, 1/3 of the enterprise applications will feature Agentic AI, up from less than 1% in 2024. This rapid growth isn't just about technological evolution, it marks the fundamental transformation in business operations. Industry giants like OpenAI and Google have dominated AI discussions with models such as ChatGPT and Gemini. However, disruptors like DeepSeek are reshaping the landscape with innovations that challenge the status quo. Their R1 model isn't just cost efficient, it signals a broader democratization of AI. The potential of generative AI is immense, transforming sectors like healthcare, finance, marketing, and many more by automating workflows and generating deep insights. Meanwhile, Agentic AI is driving operational efficiency, enabling business to learn from interactions and optimize processes in real time. For instance, while companies leverage generative AI to automate customer service, they are employing Agentic AI to streamline supply chain, showcasing how those technologies create tangible impact. Yet, great power comes with greater responsibility. How do we balance breakneck innovation with ethical considerations? What happens when businesses no longer rely solely on human decision making? These pressing questions will shape our conversations today. To help us unpack all these complexities, I'm thrilled to welcome Dr. Subhendu Pattnaik, Chief Marketing Officer at Covasant. With deep background in strategic marketing, data-driven decision-making, and AI adoption, Subhendu has guided CMOs across Asia Pacific during his tenure at Forrester and later drove marketing transformation at Signity Technologies. And now at Covasant, Subhendu is at the forefront of harnessing generative and agentic AI to drive real business results. His insights aren't just timely, they are essential for anyone navigating today's rapidly evolving landscape. So let's get started. Hi, Subhendu, and welcome to the Spark and the Forge podcast. How are you?
I'm good, Subrata. Thank you for having me.
You know, your career path has been quite an adventure from being an analyst at Forrester to now leading marketing at Covasant. Was this all part of a master plan, or did you just take a leap of hope for the best?
It has always been a leap of faith and a lot of prayers. and it is never by design. I have always taken opportunities when they have come or surfaced in front of me, and I just felt that the opportunity is good, and I just grabbed it with both hands.
To be honest, going from research to startup life is a quite a big shift. At the Forrester, you were analyzing trends, and now you're at the trenches making things happen. What's that one thing that completely surprised you about the startup?
So I have been part of multiple startups in my career journey. So I knew that when you're getting started, you have to build the team. You have to make sure that all of the technology investments are in place for marketing. You have to do a lot of things from ground up. So that was something which is known. At Forrester, it was very exciting. I got an opportunity to work with so many of the talented CMOs across the Asia Pacific region. Worked with a lot of my colleagues in North America, in Europe, in Asia Pacific, while we were shaping up what are the things which CMOs should be focusing on. So I think it was a great experience. I saw that in Forrester. I was researching on generative AI and how can enterprises, marketing organizations adopt generative AI to increase the efficiency of the teams, to increase the throughput, and how can they rethink some of the marketing processes, right? And when I saw that, there is this company which the opportunity presented itself to me where they were trying to build something in the agentic AI space, I felt that it's a great time for me to get a little more involved and active into the execution side of it, in addition to the strategy bit, which I was already doing. So yeah, that's where
Okay.
I am.
So, stepping away from work for a second, what's that one thing about you that people won't find in your professional bio? And could it be some hidden talent or something unexpected, maybe a childhood dream or something totally random?
Okay, there are quite a few of things, which is not there on my profile anywhere. It's just my thought process, in terms of belief in that superpower, which is all driving all of us. Whenever I feel stressed, whenever I'm anxious, if I do chanting, I
Right,
see that it has really helped me a lot.
right.
And yeah, this is one thing which probably not a lot of people know, but now they will know.
Great. Now let's shift gear and explore the cutting edge world of generative AI and agentic AI. How are these technologies revolutionize the business and what does the future hold? So let's talk about generative AI's evolution and its competitive impact. But before we dive into generative AI, set the stage. For those who aren't deep into the AI space, how would you explain generative AI in a simple terms? And how is it different from agentic AI?
Okay, sure. I think this is a great question. If we take a step back, the traditional AI has been there with us for quite a while. And in fact, when we think, for example, banking and financial services organizations to provide a loan, right? So determining your credit worthiness. So it was always there, So you had you had all of the past details of millions of people. You take all of that and try to map them with how many of them have defaulted, what has been the default, and when somebody defaulted, what was the kind of loan. Compare that with the various parameters of the person: salary, location, geography, which, so on and so forth. There are so many of these parameters. Probably it would run into hundreds, if not more. So all of this was already processed by AI. So that is what we call traditional AI. It used to process all of that information and then give you a score. And if the score is above a particular threshold, then you know that you have to give the loan to a person or allow insurance coverage to a particular person. That was there for enterprises, institutions, and individuals, all the like. So that was traditional AI. There are so many more implementations of it, but then it was more predictive in nature. As we progressed, come 2022, October-November timeframe, that's when the world woke up to generative AI. Suddenly, it was no longer complex coding, complex programs which were needed to interact or leverage the benefits of AI. It was just natural language queries, as we call them as prompts. If you could prompt the system something, magically it was creating some of this output and giving it to you. And then, no wonder, non-tech people started using generative AI. If we try to define generative AI in a simple sentence, it is a system which is able to take natural language prompts and give you an output in terms of text or image or code or whichever videos and all of that, right? So it just creates, and people started using it left, right, and center all across wherever they could. And they realized that slowly okay, every time I have to get a response, I have to give an input, right? They said that okay, that's not something which I would want to do. We would want to take one step forward and said that what if I can create an agent which will take the query at a regular time of the day, run it, and then give me the output, show it to me in an email, or just on the interface or something like that, which removed the manual intervention at the initial entry point, was taken off by an agent, and you could trigger that based on an event happening or based on the time of the day and so on. So that is how I define an agent. Now, so what is agentic then? So agentic is nothing but if you start looking at agents and orchestrate multiple agents in a workflow to give you a final end product. Let's say earlier days we were setting up Google alerts. We used to give some keywords if we wanted to track that keyword and what are the things happening in that space. We used to get some of those responses back in an email saying that these are some of the recent matching URLs which got indexed in Google today. Now what is happening is, if you can create an agentic AI system, there would be a search agent which would take the keywords which you have already given, and then it will search that. It will send it to generative AI, an LLM, and then it will summarize each of these links. And then that's the step one. The step two is take all of the summaries, put that into a newsletter format. And then the third step can be send it out to me in an email. So what you see is, if you have configured this agentic, now this is what we call orchestration of multiple agents in different forms, to give you a final end product. So by the time you wake up in the morning, based on the keywords you have set, you have a fully ready summary with kind of a newsletter which you can consume without you having to go to any of the searches and all of that. The impact is phenomenal. So that's where you are seeing agentic AI. Now, when you come to service as a software, you are saying that what if I can do this agentic AI implementation to multiple different industries? And so for industrial, maybe it can be a banking organization, it can be a healthcare organization. If I can use this agentic AI infrastructure and convert that into a solution which can solve for a particular use case to bring in more efficiency, to improvise the process workflows.
Yeah. Right. That's a good summary. Now, AI has been evolving for decades, but something about this moment we are living in this age feels different. The generative and the agentic AI are not just the incremental improvements, they're actually changing the game. In your view, was there a particular breakthrough, whether it's a computing power, data, model, architecture, algorithm, that really set this shift into motion?
I think great question. It was not a model, it was just an application of a model which created this transformation, or the entire world started using one application which was invoking the LLM, right, which was ChatGPT. And that is the one which has changed the way we started thinking, we started working, executing, and so on. Earlier, if we wanted to write a speech, right, we would probably think about what are the things we want to say. We would structure them. We would write it down, first in paper, then in Word, and so on. And then we will refine it till we get to a state where it delivers value to the audience. Today, we are starting to think in fractions and pieces, fragments of thoughts, and we are relying on generative AI, in any of these tools, applications, to give us that completed script, to give us that entire speech.
So should we also think about this breakthrough because the entire ecosystem, in terms of the innovation that has happened on accelerated computing, the entire world of data, the architecture, the algorithms improvement, combined with the innovation of the models that has taken place, all of it has contributed to this new innovation. Don't you think that's another way to
Absolutely.
look at it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think, it can't happen in isolation, right? So,
Yeah.
while and it's an ecosystem,
Right.
you need GPUs, you definitely need the computing power, you need high-end chips, you
Right.
also need, the the network to support you. Now, a lot of what has also happened is cloud had also picked up in a big way. All of our hyperscalers, they have been able to, because it's very difficult to, overnight you want to get something high end. It's very difficult for someone to get into those high end computing, because you'd never know that if you are really serious about it, if you want to build it for a longer term and so on. But today, just because of these hyperscalers, smaller organizations can also start, individuals can also take an account in each of these or any one of these, and then they can start. So this ecosystem has to enable. We have seen all of the entire ecosystem evolve, which got them to at this stage.
In fact, that leads me to this question, and I would like you to reflect. So now we have OpenAI, GPT models, and DeepSeek is pushing the boundaries. We are seeing the AI is becoming more accessible than ever. Do you think this kind of levels playing field even for smaller players, or do larger organizations still have the edge in harnessing these capabilities?
Definitely making it a level playing field. Earlier, a lot of smaller organizations didn't have a huge set of teams, so personalizing their messaging for the customers was definitely a challenge. You did not have the bandwidth to do something like that at scale for all of your customers. Today, you can afford to do that. You didn't have the right set of ammunition when you were doing an outreach to an unknown audience or through LinkedIn and so on. It was very difficult for a smaller organization without the right set of people on board to be able to deliver the messaging in the right way. Today, all of that is now at the same level. Everybody talks in the same language. Going forward, what would again twist the game towards in the favor of the larger organization is that how effectively they will be able to use agents. Because agent orchestration is, even though it sounds very simple, it is not, because you have to first think of the use case, then you have to think of how to break that down into individual smaller tasks, and that is what we do in our organization today. And then once you break that all up, then you configure the agents, then you keep fine tuning each of the agents performance, because there are newer models which are coming up every other day, which are more faster. For example, we're all very happy with what we already have, and then DeepSeek suddenly comes in and say that the kind of training which is needed, or the cost training which are needed to train an LLM, I can slash that by 20 times, and within just 5% of the training cost, I can have a nearly equal, if not better, kind of responses to that of existing LLMs. And that is where they started using reinforcement learning as the concept, so that it is finalizing on the output and the process when the output is good. And then that process is then again fed back into the LLM to saying that this is something you used to learn. So I feel that as larger organizations move quickly towards establishing some of these agentic AI frameworks into use cases for their organizations, that will slowly start to increase the barriers to entry. And we already are seeing some of these agentic workplaces happening, getting created. Workflow recently announced agent platform, which where you can have agents for all of your enterprises, whichever ones. As I'm sure, as the ecosystem matures a little bit more, you would see more and more agents which are available off the shelf to do things which you probably would need a huge amount of people to do it. So yeah, that's how.
That's an interesting perspective, obviously. Show the generative AI is shaking up industries across the board. Now, industries are thinking about how do we really apply it. In some sense, if you look at it, how the work will change. Now, one can imagine that the work will be broken up into several components. So, if I am able to have an agent who can think about forecasting and produce those analysis and the reports, that gives so much of insights. And maybe one would think about multiple different agents doing several things. So the work itself is changing. So how do you see the work perspective across the various industries will shift and change the way companies operate?
Fantastic question. Thank you, Subrata, for bringing that. So I think if you look at the recent announcement which OpenAI did, OpenAI launched their O3 model, right? O3 model is nothing but it is an agent which you can unleash for your research, right? If you think of a newsletter, which it's a very simple example, let's say about 20 accounts, you have to send a newsletter, and these are your top 20 accounts, enterprise accounts. So you would absolutely want to engage them on a very personal level, give them updates about their industry. What are the things which are happening in their industry? If there are some of their peers or competitors doing something differently, they would want to know, or you would want to let them know. If there is a new technology which has come in which can disrupt what they are trying to do, then I'm sure you would like to be the first to let them know and to also help them if how they can navigate through that, probably adopt that, and so on. So there are so many of these things you would want to do. And also, because you have an engagement going on with them, you would probably want to give them an update about what are the things which are happening in your account across the ecosystem, who are the people who are doing well, and so on. So it's a very personal kind of an exercise with that specific customer, right? Now think about it. Where would you get all of that information and who all would you employ? So you would have a market research person whose job is to start looking at the industry. They have to understand the industry. So the market research person has to have that understanding of whichever industry that is, and then find out what are the tech trends that are happening. Look at some of the analyst firms. What are they saying? What are they shaping up? Anything new which has come in this month? Look at the news items which have been published, and so on. Then you have another person, which is probably your salesperson, who goes into the platform, CRM system, sales or client partner, who they go into the system, start looking at the client temperature. What is it that we are doing with them? Are they happy? Are they not happy? Is there something which we can showcase that this is what was the highlight? Then you take all of that information, then you need a content writer, right? Somebody who will be able to take all of this information, put that into blocks of information so that it's showing up nicely in a newsletter format. You then have a designer who designs the images, and then finally the newsletter comes together, and then somebody has to review it. Probably the client partner, probably the head of marketing, or whichever product marketing people on your team, they have to review it. This entire process will definitely take, at the minimum, about 3 days. If you want to do that for 20 companies, it's going to take you nothing less than 60 working days, which is about 3 months. Now, fast forward, come to an agentic AI world. You can configure agents for each of this. A research agent, an agent which reads your CRM, an agent which generates text based on all of the findings, an agent which takes the image, the text inputs or the summaries to create an image which goes along with the text, and then an agent which is able to collate the images and the text into a newsletter format and sends it for human in the loop review. So the entire process can be configured to be delivered for the account in about 6 hours, including human review. Let's say it will take another 2 hours more. So in about 8 hours, you have completed one account. And it's not just one account. If you want to do for all the 20 accounts, it can all be done in 6 hours by the agents. And then the human who needs to review probably can take 2-3 days or maybe a week. So a total of 3-person months of effort has come down to 1 week of manual effort. That is the kind of.
So another counter to that is, well, so many people used to work. Now you're taking away all of those people's job. They no longer will have any role to play. Is that the reality? The future we will have a bunch of agents who will do it, and we will just manage those software agents?
No. So that's never the case. People are always an integral part of the system. Of course, when typewriters came in, people said that, a lot of the people who were typewriting, now their jobs are gone. But that didn't happen. The jobs transformed themselves. People transformed themselves by acquiring new skills. And that is what is going to happen. Today, we didn't think about, all of these things. So tomorrow, when we are having some of these newsletters, monitoring jobs are going to go up. For example, and I'll give you another example while I'll come back to this newsletter too. So think of, for example, the autonomous cars. Today, we are talking about autonomous cars. Everything will be driven. You don't have to drive it. You just have to relax and all of that. Imagine what will happen to the thousands and thousands of drivers worldwide who are making driving a living when autonomous cars become a reality and they are like commonplace everywhere. Everybody is using that. Where will drivers go? What is the other skill which they will pick up? At that time, what will happen, Subrata? And I got this from a conversation with the CEO who I was interacting. And what we felt was that more and more car monitoring systems will come up. So you have 10 autonomous cars being managed or being monitored by one driver. Today, we are calling that as a driver just to make sure that the person is now not driving, but monitoring and controlling some of these cars remotely. You could have systems like that where safety will become paramount importance, right? It always has been. So the roles will change. Similarly, when somebody, when the newsletters are getting created very easily, the same people will be engaged to do something more. How do I? Because everybody else can then have access to similar agentic AI systems, they can create something like that. So how do I differentiate? That creativity has to be in there to build in that differentiation from the other person, and that's where human talent will come in.
But the
So
point, Subhendu, is that the difference between other industrial revolution and this time with the AI and generative AI is that intelligence is almost becoming commoditized. Today, you have access to intelligence. Now, that is a big shift because now you will have entities who can think, who can sense, who can make decisions to a larger extent and also take actions. Now, when that happens, it's kind of emulating what human does in larger sense. Therefore, although we feel humans roles will be amplified, but I am not sure whether we have really figured it out what kind of roles will human do in the future. We will not play this kind of role, but we'll play something different kind of roles, and that's an era probably we are yet to see.
no, I think I totally agree with you.
Because
And
essentially some of the jobs will get displaced for sure. If you are saying so many drivers are going to be replaced, if I am replacing with a full autonomous car for the trucks, for example, in the United States, those drivers obviously will lose their jobs. Now, how many of those drivers will take a role where they will end up monitoring? Very less. So what will the rest of them do? So while industry thinking about deploying and implementing the agentic AI or generative AI and this kind of technologies, um, what do you think the industry should be thinking in terms of creating new roles, creating new jobs, thinking about what kind of things that human do?
okay, fantastic question. And of course, there are concerns which are inbuilt into the question, and that's there on everybody's minds as well. There are issues in terms
Yeah.
of adoption. There are concerns in terms of adoption. But what I would like to say is that it's all about human beings were a different species because of a special thing, which was the brain which we have got. And that's the reason why we human beings have been able to do things what other species on the planet have not been able to do. Having said that, we probably generative AI is that stepping stone which is helping us commoditize or helping us take off, automate some of those tasks which were which didn't have a lot of creative intelligence as part of it. It was a lot of effort, it was a lot of hard work, but it was repetitive. Anything which is repetitive has a risk of getting automated, of getting done by the agents in the future. So what when I start looking at it, I start training our teams or interacting with my teams today or creating teams for the future, this is what I always say: think of this as an ally. Think of generative AI as an ally. Think of it as a tool. The calculator is a tool that didn't take away, the need for financial calculations. Financial calculations are just being made easy. The way you want to calculate, what do you want to calculate? That is where creativity comes in. So I don't think calculator took away the computation ability of human. We just are now thinking of very complex computations to be done scientifically. The same way, when we start looking at generative AI, some of these simpler tasks, repetitive tasks, which were getting done over and over and over again, those are the ones which will go. But if you start looking at what value add I can do to make sure that this is much better, that's where creative intelligence comes in. And that is what I would urge my teams and everybody else listening to this to do, so that you're trying to bring in that wow factor in everything you are doing. Everyone else has the same email. So now what do I say? What is the way in which I can connect? If see, I was having this conversation with one of the journalists at Business Line earlier this week, and she said that, Shubhendu, we are seeing that the data suggests that print advertising is going up. 5 years or 6 years before, we were saying that because of online picking up, print was going down. So then why is print coming back up? Because people are starting to use that medium more creatively. It is no longer just the print. People are spraying, perfumes on it. I remember one of the, hyper speed delivery platforms. They put some Alfonso mangoes in there and then they sprayed it with perfume. So when they do that, you actually get a 3D experience just by looking at a newspaper, right? Now, did some of us imagine this 10 years back? Maybe once in a while, somewhere in some corner of the world, somebody would have done that. But some of this creativity will become more and more common, or we would start seeing more of this when generative AI is trying to take away some of the things that are very repetitive in nature.
We'll move on. By my personal thought on this is that while there's innovation in terms of improving the supply side, today we are putting a lot of effort, a lot of innovation, a lot of ideas in terms of improving productivity. Yes, it will go up. Yes, we will be able to do things faster, but there has to be equal amount of thinking on the demand side as well. If the world grows 10%, 15%, then all countries grow, then I think we will have enough abilities to really produce and contribute to the GDP. But unless and until the demand improves, only by focusing supply, there could be some disparity. But anyway, that's a topic to take up some other time. Let's move on to the next one, the global AI race. And I want to take your input into this. As AI race continues to heat up, the massive investments are shaping the future. You must have heard about this Stargate project in the US with OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank pouring in about $500 billion into next generation AI infrastructure. And the recent AI summit in Paris, we also saw 110 or 120 million euro in AI commitments. And India is making its own moves as well in terms of strengthening digital public infrastructure and gaining global recognition. And India is anyway going to be hosting the next AI summit. So with all this capital fueling the AI's growth, how do you see the landscape evolving beyond infrastructure? What ripple effects will these investments have on AI innovation and industry adoption?
I think every one of us is focusing on making AI work better for the human race. That's what the key intent is. And if you have heard J.D. Vance's speech, you would know that I liked one line which he said: "We must make an attempt to capture the lightning in a bottle." What that basically means is we haven't done this before. This is something very novel. There are issues, there are risks associated, and there is uncertainty as well. Not a lot of clarity in terms of how this all will shape up. We have to keep it safe. We have to make sure that there are rules and regulations which which are guardrails, which serve as guardrails for the entire AI to function. But we shouldn't curtail innovation just because we don't. I mean, there is a momentum right now. The ecosystem is empowering it. People have already started seeing the benefits of it. It is making their jobs easier. It is making their lives easier. It's making it more comfortable. I think with all of this investments pouring in and the entire ecosystem heating up, we have to ensure that we continue to look forward to the changes and keep ourselves updated about what is happening. It's a fast changing world. Today we are talking about one thing, tomorrow there is another model. Mistral came in recently with their own model, which suddenly everybody else started talking about Mistral and nothing else. So I think with a lot of these things changing, and we will continue to see changes in future. The way I'm looking at it is we are barely scratching the surface as of now. Barely
Early in
scratching the
the
surface.
game. So while US and Europe are making big bets for sure, India also stepping up. Alpen recently visited India. OpenAI is expanding the footprint here, and India is on push for AI development also signals a shift. So for startups, especially here in India, what does this moment mean? There are many early stage startups. Are these initiatives like Stargate or India's own AI investment initiative open up new real opportunities to create further growth?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Subrata, the moment we talk about India, I am starting to believe
Yeah.
that the kind of policies which are being brought in today, the kind of investments which Indian government is making in incentivizing the development of AI or the implementation of AI for different business use cases, that's phenomenal and probably next to none, right? And in fact, as we speak, the government of Telangana is also coming up with an AI city. That's a massive investment which is happening where AI startups will be allowed to operate. There are so many incentives which are provided to them. The ecosystem is being enabled. I think a startup in this space today is absolutely at the right time in the right place. They have to start looking at how can we solve. Everybody around the world is trying to solve business challenges and trying to figure out how can AI solve. It can be tools, it can be the technology itself, it can be applications. But what do we do so that we are able to solve the challenges of which businesses are facing today in a big way? If we can do that, not just in terms of efficiency is the first bit of the game. But the second is how do I change the workflows? Because now no longer those approvals are needed. Let's say from three people, then only the something will be processed. Agents can do all of that at the within no time. So having said that, rethinking, reimagining business processes is also important. So there are startups which are coming in, new companies which are coming in. If they are able to focus on industry problems, thinking how I can solve an industry challenge using a framework, using their own proprietary platforms.
If we think about it, the way the work has changed, earlier we used to work with the computers. We used to do certain thing, and computer you'll process and give the information to us. Obviously, it has its own evolution and became more powerful. But probably are moving towards a world where it is no longer just a human and computer, two separate entities. It is a human and computer together. So, which means that it's a part of my workforce. If I have 100-member team, but there will be also certain agents who will be part of my extended team as well. It's like assuming that I have unlimited bandwidth, which I can utilize and be more productive, and not just finite number of people working with me. So it's a human and agents collaboration, if you will. Is
Yep.
a what is your reflection on that?
I think 2 months back when I was a Forrester analyst, and I have recently joined Covasant as their CMO. So at Forrester, we predicted that by the end of 2025, 40% of companies, B2B companies, will actually have AI co-workers working alongside their human, teams.
Yep.
That's 40%, Subrata. It's a huge number, and we are already seeing that in action. It's just 2 months that has gone by since the new year, and we are already seeing things in action. The agentic AI ecosystem is heating up. So I think that's it's absolutely there that companies are trying to bring in how they can create agents which they can use to alongside their human workforce to be able to create something which will deliver impact at scale. I think that's important, and that's what is happening right now. Totally with you.
Back to India. What do you think um, India's biggest competitive advantage? Talent, data, homegrown AI innovation. What do you think we have, which is very unique?
It's the talent. So it's the and also the hunger for growth. I think Indians, as as a team, as a community, as a country, we absolutely are very hungry for growth. We want to make things happen, and that's there in everybody's DNA. Anyone you look at, anyone we speak to, they would have a lot of aspirations they want to make true. And when you have people like that, and then the entire country, is aligned and, looking at in one direction to make growth, very rarely would growth not happen. So I think India has that huge advantage of talent, and that too, young talent, which can think very creatively. For some of them or many of them, generative AI is probably the first thing they saw after they came out of their colleges, for many of them. And so you can say they are Gen AI natives. They are agentic AI natives. So they haven't seen the world without agents. So what they start doing is they start using agents or agentic AI as their companions for helping them solve problems. I have been interviewing a lot of Gen Zs for my team, and I can already see that in action. People are thinking very differently. People are using tools which we never knew existed. People are able to, if I give you a prompt, just one line, create me a presentation for this and this, and then that, they are using multiple tools, Subrata.
Yep.
One tool to come up with the outline, the other tool expands it up, the other tool creates presentation slides, adds the pictures, the other tool creates illustrations. It actually draws the mind map kind of things
Yep.
just by prompts. Now, at the end of 30 minutes, you have a full blown presentation which is almost 80% ready. So that's what this generation is able to accomplish. So I'm sure that as more and more of youngsters start coming in and joining this pool of talent, India will be at the cusp of something really big, a big transformation in the agentic AI space.
If you see, the compute power is changing, becoming game changer. There is always a rush for compute power. Projects like Stargate driving down the AI cost. India is also investing heavily on AI infrastructure. I think it's about 18,000 high-end GPUs for its own, for our own domestic large language model. Could this push toward cost-effective AI give the Indian startups an edge, do you think?
Right? A lot of Indian startups are bootstrapping, and they have their ideas. They are mostly technical founders. They lack proper access to the ecosystem. Things are changing now. Whatever the access we have today is probably way better than what it was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. But still, the ecosystem broadly or mostly has entrepreneurs who are mostly bootstrapping. So whenever things which are done to incentivize to make it more cost effective, I think that would definitely spur a huge amount of growth in the startup ecosystem for sure.
Do you also see the India emerging as a global hub, not just AI software, but AI hardware innovation?
I think we have the potential, and given our understanding of the IT, given our understanding of the global industries, US, UK, Europe, Australia, Asia Pacific, and all of the other regions, whichever we talk of, Indians, because of our, 2.5, 3 decades of IT experience, we already know each of the systems, the kind of challenges they face, and how they can be fixed. We know what are the stage they are in right now, and we understand the technology disruptions which are happening. What is the impact AI can create? So we have everything ready. We have the talent, we have the manpower, we have the know-how, we have the experience. We now also are getting incentivized because of the government as well. So having said all of this, I think we have the right recipe in place to build the cuisine, but it all then we have to just wait and watch. But I definitely feel that India has a solid potential opportunity at hand right now, not just in.
What's the missing piece beyond infrastructure, investment, talent? What do Indian companies need the most to compete globally?
This is a tough question, Subrata. I must say that Indian companies, when we look at it, we are already doing the right things, and that's the reason why we are able to grasp things newer. But when we start looking at the companies outside, probably the pace at which we are innovating, that has to go up. We have started looking at how do I service around a particular technology, how do I build around a particular technology. But we have to, I think the dominance will come when we have our own models, when we have our own applications which are kind of starting to get used across the world. one such application in the next 1 or 2 or 3 months is going to give that kind of confidence, which will then boost everybody else to start coming up with similar models.
Several decades, India has done significantly well in the services sector. Today, we are well known IT services space and many other services sector. Now, things that probably worked in progress is about how India become a product nation. How do we build new products? Products are not only be built by Silicon Valley and others, but India can also build. Do you think this is one of the things that with the new innovation, technology, infrastructure, with the manufacturing focus, India could become, or India could leapfrog in terms of becoming product nation?
Yeah, absolutely. And then we are already seeing that in action. The Zohos of the world, which we have, or there are many companies, right, which are now taking head-on competition with a lot of the larger behemoths, which are in globally in the US and other parts of the world. We have multiple such products. I think, if I'm not wrong, we had 140 unicorns or slightly more than that. Don't hold me on that number, but I think we have so many of these unicorns already, which are product-based companies. So these are Indian products reaching the global markets and getting adopted at scale. We have already started on that journey, and none of this is an overnight, kind of an endeavor. And so probably in the next couple of years, as we reap the benefits of some of these government incentives and interventions to promote this ecosystem, we would start seeing that we no longer just have services, but also are playing a very dominant role in the product space as well globally.
One of the critical element in driving AI innovation and getting the AI right is about the data and how that integrates to scale. So, how can companies really effectively address this challenge?
Understanding data is critical. If you are feeding wrong data into the system, even though highly sophisticated LLMs will also fail because the input is incorrect. I think data, and that's the reason why you would start seeing that more and more data engineering companies are becoming more and more relevant. Now, for any enterprise who wants to reap the benefits of AI, not just Gen AI, Agentic AI, but broadly, data becomes the cornerstone. That becomes the bedrock for anything they want to do. So I think to start, there are, and Forrester, because I have worked, so I know that there are frameworks which are available, which talks about how can you build data readiness? What is it that you should be thinking of? What kind of sources you should be looking at? What should be your data ingestion methods? Where should you store them? Should you store them in a data lake? What kind of data lake should it be? I think, and then how do you process it? How do you make sure that the data is not just complete, accurate, but also is secure, is robust, so that the issue with personal identification is resolved. So you are at least removing the risks which are associated when it comes to personally identifiable information. So I think investing in data is the first step. There are a lot of good frameworks which are available, which companies can start looking at to get an understanding of where to get started. It's if in this AI age, when companies are battling in terms of AI supremacy, if organizations like the user organizations, if they do not have the right data, it can push them really behind. They will lose their competitive edge in the coming years. So yeah, I think every organization should start focusing on building that data readiness.
We are constantly navigating the fine line between the innovation and responsible use of AI, right? So, in your view, what are some of the toughest trade offs the organization face when balancing these competing interests?
It's another tough question. None of the organizations who I have spoken with till now, have adopted AI entirely. Everyone is saying that, okay, this is my core, this is my traditional model. I want to test out on how to implement or how to experiment with, agentic AI or generative AI, and what is it that it is capable of. So I think, while organizations continue to take that step towards adopting generative AI, agentic AI in a big way, we have to be cognizant of the fact, or organizations have to be cognizant of the fact that it is going to impact their people. If it is going to impact their people, That basically means we have to make sure that our people are trained, they are aware of how their roles will be changing, what new skills have they have to pick up for them to be able to deliver, work closely together. When I say ethical use of AI, we have to make sure that we are getting the right responses from AI. And so that's the reason why the AI governance is important. We have to put the right guardrails. Now, AI is a system. These are large language models. At the root of it, they are programs, right? So if the kind of bias, I think there was some funny discussion which was happening on LinkedIn a couple of days back, and I saw many conversations. So if you say that to chat GPT or some application, you say that, draw a writer who is using his left hand to write, and in a setup and all of that, generative AI was creating somebody writing with a right hand, not a left hand. So now why is that? So that's a bias in the system, that there are more people in the audience or in the species, in the human species, which are right-handed than left-handed, probably, because of which there is this bias. We have to stop some of these biases to be there in our responses in the LLMs we use. We have to make sure that those are not there. Now, this can be a very small kind of a example, but if it comes to a bias towards ethnicity, if it comes towards a bias for a specific race, while selecting candidates or while giving loan applications or while giving healthcare service, when everything becomes agentic AI, if some of these are not curtailed at the root level, when we are just putting together the building blocks, it will become very, very difficult to manage some of these systems 10 years from now. So I think that's where we have responsible AI, which needs to be focused on as and when we are putting together those building blocks for the systems which we are trying to use.
Which of the industries have you seen are really making great progress in adopting AI, generative AI, agentic AI? And what kind of use cases are you seeing some of them are really being implemented?
The level of adoption of AI actually depends on multiple factors. It's not just industry specific, I will say. It is sometimes company specific. And, the kind of culture of experimentation which is there in the organization. Sometimes it is also mandated by the government, what kind of regulations you have to operate within. So if there are companies, that makes some companies very risk averse, and some are okay to take that kind of an experiment mindset to do a particular experiment and to transform, right? I don't have the data. If I were to quote some of the old data which we had at Forrester, that would not be right. But what I see is that there are quite a lot of implementations in the banking and financial services space. We are also seeing a lot of traction in the healthcare ecosystem. So healthcare and life sciences space, we are seeing the interactions between patient, hospitals, and insurance companies. A lot of those relationships has a lot of fabric in it to be able to become a target for agentic
That's
AI systems.
interesting point, because both those two examples that you gave are highly regulated. We are able to see some progress in terms of adoption of AI, and generative AI is something worth noting.
Yeah. So I think a lot of organizations, are experimenting. They are not adopting in a big way. So there is always a range for, the experimentation within the organization. And as and when we start seeing some of these green shoots from some of these experiments, then we would come to a stage where, regulations come in saying how much percentage of it you can do it through agents, how much percentage there should be human intervention, human in the loop. But we are not there yet. We are still in the experimentation stage. So some of this is still happening. And that's where, going back to the AI summit, which recently happened, and coming back to the speech, we shouldn't curtail innovation. We should start doing those experiments to make sure that we are first trying to understand the kind of benefits which are out there, which can happen with this technology. Once you know that, then you start understanding that how can I put guardrails so that it is safe to use, not just creative and beneficial, but it is also safe. And that's where some of these regulations will also need to be modified to make AI safe for everyone who uses it.
So how are companies like Covasant, for example, navigating these ethical and regulatory challenges?
See, like I said, we are still in the early days in terms of, so our intent is to start looking at what are some of these use cases which are the most cumbersome, which are the ones which are keeping executives awake in the night, and how can we solve them? So we have built this proprietary AI platform, which we call as the Covasant AI Fabric. The AI Fabric, think of it as the fabric has all the different elements. There are some which we have acquired, capabilities. There are some which we are building, and then there are some capabilities which we are partnering with existing providers. And we have, with this buy and build versus partner kind of a model, we have put together the AI fabric, which becomes my core for delivering any kind of a service for every different domain which we are focusing on. Now we take pieces of that fabric.
Before you talk about the capabilities, I want you to first talk about what is Covasant all about? What does this name mean? What is your company's core mission? What are you really doing? Can you just give a broad perspective of this company?
Thank you for the opportunity. Covasant is, if you split the word, we have Co-Vasant. Vasant means spring. We at Covasant, we are saying that if we are together, if we collaborate, we will be able to bring spring, and spring is pleasant, and that's where Covasant was born. And when we started creating this company, we realized that there are businesses who are struggling with understanding AI, adopting AI into their enterprises, enterprise workflows, and we saw that there is a huge opportunity to play that role, right? When some of the larger organizations, in the IT services space, they have huge set of manpower, but we now have the advantage to build the same kind of systems, deliver probably an equal impact or even higher impact with an agentic AI workflow. That's when we realized that, why don't we take what is available right now to build something which can be relevant for the industries which we are serving. And so that's how Covasant came into being. So if I were to define Covasant in maybe a sentence or two, I would say that we are agentic AI led services as software company, which is accelerating.
What does that mean?
Okay. So we have all known what is software as a service, right?
Right.
Let me take this example. Let's say I really don't want to buy an ERP. Okay. I want to buy a system, or I want to use a platform which is helping me connect with my customers better, which is helping me connect with my employees better. And so I want to track all of their information. And okay, I have number of layers within my organization. I have in my customer base, I have multiple layers and so on. So my requirements are complicated, but for sure I need a system. So in the traditional world, looking at SaaS, which is software as a service, and I'll say that, okay, let me take the software, and then I see that, okay, how much, that probably will do 70% of the work which I wanted. And then the remaining, so I have taken the software because I needed a service, but I actually got a software which I then have to customize, and it will take, customizations are complex, they are time consuming and all of that. So I will probably get the entire thing what I wanted sometime down the line, 1 month down the line, 1 year down the line, and so on. Now, if I flip that around and I say that we are delivering services as software, that basically means the fitment will be 100% from day one. You are not getting something which I have already designed for somebody, and then we give that to you, and that is doing 60% of your work, and then I start creating customizations and charge you for the customization. No, we are saying that all of your services, whatever you need, you outline that, we will deliver to you as a system. We will deliver to you as an agentic AI system. So services, what you need, delivered as a software or agentic AI software. So that's what we are saying.
Let's say I am a automobile company. I need to provide customer services to my customers. How does Covasant help in this case?
So we will take in all of the inputs. Okay. So what are your goals? You said that if I have customer, I want to speak to customers, right? So your end goal is to increase your customer engagement, and then improve your customer experience. And probably there is some measuring mechanism which will help you evaluate that before I got started, this was my score, engagement score, experience score of my customers. Now that after the end of the year, this is what I want to be at. Right. So that can be one objective. And how do you manifest that or how do you measure that? You probably see that in the number of renewals in, which is happening, or number of new people coming in and buying from you. There are some metrics, right? So you start working with those outcomes in mind and say that we have to build this system. Now, if we have to build this system in an agentic AI system, then what I will start doing is I'll take each of these objectives and break that into smaller pieces and create agents for each of them, and then orchestrate the agents between themselves to give you the final product.
But to orchestrate the agent, will you be interacting or integrating with other systems like an ERP product or anything else?
No. So it is not needed. It is not required. We do not need an ERP system to build this kind of a system which you just talked about. The agents will be able to formulate their own structure, their own systems. And so while if there is a specific requirement from you saying that I already have an ERP, which you need to speak to, that's when, of course, we can, integrate the agents with the ERP. But in cases where you say that I'm okay this is my end goal, I want to see how efficiently, how creatively you are able to build such a thing for me. And then we can create that. So, and the beauty about this entire thing is
when you deploy that agent, it has to integrate or interact with other systems which are already there to really get the job done. So would you be integrating with them?
Yeah. So like I said, now there are incremental ways of looking at innovation which you are bringing in. There are monumental ways of change which you want to drive. If you are ready to look at a really transformational solution which can get the job done at a fraction of the cost you are already paying, then we can go in for an overhaul. But if you are saying that I want to, test out this system for a while, why don't you, this is my existing infrastructure, why don't you integrate with this infrastructure and try to show me where you can add value? So we can do that as well as you gain confidence. If you gain confidence, if you want to replace your traditional systems, then that can be done as well. And the beauty about all of this is that all of these systems will be built in record time, probably 1/10, 1/20th of the time it takes to build such kind of an enterprise software. And that is where the AI fabric, Covasant AI fabric.
So you are making it personalized for every company, whoever wants that agent. Depending on the work or business process the company will need to execute, you will model it and you will build it specifically, personalizing for that particular requirement, and you will deploy. So tomorrow, another auto company, each of them could have a different workflow, different business process, and you will make them personalized for each of them. Is that correct?
And that is exactly how the services as a software is defined.
So, and you will charge the customer based upon the SaaS same model?
Yeah, the pricing models vary depending on whether the customer wants it as a turnkey solution, whether they want it as a subscription service. There are different models.
What is your value proposition?
Yeah. So 3, for sure, cost. A fraction of the cost which it costs to create the kind of system which, it would have traditionally taken you to build. That's number 1. The second is accelerated, time to value realization. So when you are developing in the traditional sense, when you are developing a software for your company, you would probably have some minor releases, some major releases to see what kind of product it is finally shaping up as. So 3 months down the line, you want to see something. Everything is in a module format. You can't touch and feel. 6 months down the line, you can see some of it. You have a screen, but screen doesn't work. You have, different layouts, but you can't really navigate. So that's how this entire thing works. But when you come to the agentic AI-led service delivery model, which we are talking about, the value realization is really quick. You get a 70% ready system within first 3-4 weeks, right? And irrespective of it being a huge system or a small system and all of that. And so you start to use the system from 3 to 4 weeks or 5-6 weeks, whichever the case may be. So you start using the system from then. And then remaining others, whatever are the other areas which are not covered by the system, as and when the agents start getting configured, you start getting to use them. So awesome. The time to value realization is the second value prop. The third one is time to market. So basically, you have not just shortened the time to market, but within that time to market, you have also the milestones within which you were operating before. You are now able to use the products in the transient stage as well. So yeah, those are the three key values.
When was this company established? Where are you now in your journey? How many clients you have across the world, and what is next for Covasant?
So we started pretty recently. We started towards end of last year, and it's just been a couple of months. The kind of structure which we are building today is we are not a typical startup. So we have brought in the top leadership from different organizations. Someone who has been leading more than 50% of business for a large company has now come in as our CEO. We have people coming in from IT services companies with more than 25, 26 years of experience. So the top leadership team has been built. We are now focusing on building the next layer of people. So now we are working in a way to build this leadership level. And then we are also starting to work with mid-level professionals who are, we are inviting profiles, doing extensive hiring at this time to bring that team together. We are also working with two companies. We are acquiring two companies, and I'll keep that for a little later. And once we have those companies on board, we will get a boost and a head start. So we will not start from zero, but we will have a sufficient amount of manpower with which we can get started and go to the market. There are a lot of customers which the companies which we are acquiring are already working with. So that would give us space to start working with as we get started. So
all right. So Subhendu, we have almost come to the end of this fascinating discussions. It's been insightful. I really enjoyed hearing your perspective on the future of AI, generative AI, and how Covasant is contributing to the exciting landscape. And I wish you all the very best, and to your company as well. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you think we should have covered today, but we have not discussed? Anything?
No, I think, Subrata, yeah, this has been a great discussion. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me to the show. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to have this conversation with me. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I hope that someone who is watching this episode, they get some value out of all of the time they have already spent. If somebody is still watching till this time, I really would love to thank them. And if they want to connect with me, they can absolutely do that by connecting with me through LinkedIn. And yeah, that's mostly about it. Thank you so much.
But before we go, let's shake things up a little bit. What we call this round is a spark round, and I'm sure you will enjoy it.
Okay.
And this is our kind of a rapid fire round, if you will. So let's switch gears and hit you with some fun, right? So I'll ask you some set of quick questions and just respond without thinking too much. Whatever does your gut feel, right?
Okay.
So are you ready?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would that be?
Any historical figure.
Any historical figure.
Mahatma Gandhi.
Okay. What is the most adventurous thing that you've ever done?
Parasailing.
If you could instantly master any skill or talent, what would that be?
Dressing.
If you could ask an AI one question to get a perfect answer, and what would that be?
Which stock is going to become a multi-bagger?
What's the most unusual food you have ever tried?
Squid.
If you could have any superpower, what would that be and how would you use it?
I just want to fly. So if I get a superpower, it would be about flying. I want to fly over the level crossing or the railway crossing, which I stayed close to in my childhood. I always dream of flying over it all the time.
What's a hobby that you have always wanted to pick up, but you haven't had a chance to do it?
Roller skates. So I have never picked that up.
If you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would you go?
Antarctica.
What's the most memorable concert or any live performance you've ever attended?
I haven't ever attended any live concert.
It is in your bucket list now. And finally, let's keep the spark going. Who is the one person you would love to see on the Spark and the Forge next as a guest? And would you be open to make that introduction?
This is a difficult question. There are so many names. I would not do justice if I were to pick one, but I will definitely make an introduction for multiple people I have.
Fantastic. Great answer, Subhendu. And you were very prompt in those fire rounds. Frankly, it was such a fun way to wrap up. An incredible conversation. Thank you for playing along this round. And Subhendu, this has been an inspiring and thought-provoking discussions. Your insights into Covasant's agentic AI-driven approach and the future of AI innovation really gave me a lot to think about. And people who are listening, it's clear that you and your team are doing some fantastic work in shaping the future of business transformation through AI and generative AI, and hope you have enjoyed sharing a vision through this conversation as much as I have enjoyed having you here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and giving me this opportunity. It was a pleasure speaking to you, Subrata.
Before, could you leave us with a few takeaways that you have learned or you have gathered through this conversation?
I think one thing which I would like to say is that AI actually is unnerving a bit, because we do not know what is in store. Thing is evolving so fast. But one thing to do is to try to keep abreast of the technology, to understand what is happening around. If we keep an open mind to learn and not give way or not accept defeat, saying that, oh, AI is coming and my job is going to go. We don't have to think that. We have to keep thinking that what is it that I can do to make use of this technology better than everybody else. We have to just keep learning, and that's the only way to stay updated and stay ahead of things around us.
On that note, thank you so much, Subhendu, for joining us on the Spark and the Forge podcast today. Your insights really highlights the transformative power of AI and how companies like Covasant are really leading the charge. As we explored in this conversation, the role of AI and generative AI in driving business efficiency and the growth is undeniable for sure. And you have given us some glimpse into this journey as it is unfolding. And for everyone who's listening, remember that AI is not just a trend. It's an essential tool for innovation and staying competitive. Covasant is showing us how AI-led services are unlocking the new opportunities and creating sustainable growth for the businesses. If you have enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button now, wherever you are listening, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple podcast, or favorite platform. And if this conversation has sparked some ideas, share it with your network. Write to Subhendu. You can continue to grow this important conversation. So being part of this journey, and I also love to hear your thoughts on how AI is transforming your industries. Let's continue the discussions. The Spark and the Forge podcast is not just a podcast. It's a space for ideas that drive change, spark innovation, and forge new paths. Stay curious, stay innovative, and keep challenging the status quo. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you in the next episode. Until then, stay well, stay safe, and bye for now.